I don't think so, Mr. Chairman. We are, I think.
We're live, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Appreciate folks hanging around. Now, here's our plan then on this House Bill 168. We're going to take, we're going to work an hour. And so we're going to take 15 minutes more of public testimony, just 15 minutes more. So be conscious as if the first person up wants to take all 15 minutes, or if we got 15 people want to take a minute, but we're going to do 15 minutes and then we're going to work the bill for about 15 minutes. I think we're going to be able to work this bill pretty quickly. And then we're going to take a vote on it one way or the other on the thing. And then we're going to move on to House Joint Resolution 9 and work that for about a half hour, take about 15 minutes of comment and try to work that bill and move it through. So appreciate everybody's partake in the process. And so can we start admitting folks to the room? And I think everybody here has already testified. Okay, beautiful. Why don't you come on up and let's get staged up, and you could actually start probably while we're bringing folks in the room. Yeah, let's get folks, we got 3 seats and then we'll just get started, and you can admit the first person if they have a hand up and we'll just get rolling. Okay. Good afternoon. Go ahead, and our 15 minutes is rolling.
I won't use nearly that much. My name is Dale Steenbergen. I'm president and CEO of the Greater Cheyenne Chamber of Commerce. You did hear from Cheyenne leads this morning, and I heard that. But I think it's important to know it's just not about companies that are coming into this state. It's also companies that are already here, and that's where I'm very concerned. There are a lot of companies that use these exemptions. They're very important to them. It's important to keep their competitiveness by keeping them in place. So, Mr. Chairman, I would just say that I would encourage you to resist this and keep those exemptions in place for those companies. Thank you.
So thank you. And just quick clarification. So mainly Section 2 is what you're interested in on the data centers, data centers.
Data centers and manufacturing
And
both.
they're both in Section
Yep,
2.
that's really our concern,
Yeah.
biggest concern here.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Detail.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Travis Detail with the Wyoming Mining Association. And I think you'll have a couple of the manufacturers on the Zoom. So I'll speak mainly to the tax on services. So the Wyoming Mining Association, we represent the state's coal companies, uranium, bentonite, Trona. We've got rare earth companies, and we have got 2 gold companies. So and we also represent about 100 companies that provide service and support supplies to the mines. I was appreciative for Director Noble this morning when he mentioned about the people that have to pay the tax. And that's the same people that have been paying the taxes all along. When you look at some of the list here of what taxes the sales tax would apply to should this bill go through, you've got engineering, you've got accounting, you've got legal services, you've got surveying services, consulting services. The mining industry isn't just taking a shovel and pulling something out of the ground. We use all of these. And, in addition to the burden that my member companies have, because these companies, these service and supply companies represent my membership as well. The burden that they would have with collecting the tax, my miners are going to pay that tax. And we're already have a very heavy tax burden on the industry. And this is simply going to drive up the cost of mining in the state at a time when we can least afford it. So with that, we oppose the bill. On the manufacturing side, my members use the manufacturing exemption, the Trona operators, the bentonite operators, the uranium producers. And in respect to uranium, or I'm sorry, Trona, we've got companies that are getting ready to do some major expansions. And the one thing that this legislature can do to help that, to create jobs, to increase production, is to let this thing go, is to stop it right here. Because I think everybody in this room knows our Trona operators are in cutthroat competition with the Chinese, and their trade practices are unfair, and we need every little advantage that we can get. We need to keep the cost of doing business where we can do business, and not make it too expensive to develop the mineral. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I would stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Deta. Any questions? Okay, appreciate you being
Thank you.
here. Thank you. Any other members? Do we have anybody admitted on the Zoom?
Mr. Chairman, we don't have anyone in the Zoom waiting room at this time.
Okay, anybody else here would like to speak on this bill? Okay, gosh, I thought there'd be like 30 people here wanting to talk. You want to? I just want to make a comment. Just until 2 or 3 minutes ago, you couldn't get in. Okay, very good. We'll pause a little bit, and I want to make sure folks have had a chance to join there. I understand there was a dot was put in the wrong spot. Okay, we'll pause a few minutes. I said we'd take 15 minutes public comment. That's about 5. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just to let you know, I did email written public comment to the committee members earlier today that we received.
We did receive that, and thank you.
Mr. Speaker, could I ask Travis Detail a question?
Get questions of the witnesses.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I knew you weren't going to let me get away, Representative Roscoe.
No, this will be easy. I'm just curious as to industry around Wyoming and if Netrona is expanding. I just didn't know what that was based on, and is it yeah, you can go ahead with that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, our Trona operators see some opportunity in the market. What you have globally is a competition between natural soda ash, which we produce here in Wyoming, and synthetic soda ash. And, you know, the competition is fierce, but our guys think they can do it. And they're always coming up with ways to mine more economically, where a lot of the mining in the past has been done underground with shovels and, you mine the rock up, you pull it to the top, and you process it up the top. They're doing a lot of they're moving towards solution mining, where they just pump the solution underground, dissolve it, and bring it to the surface, which makes it more economical and more competitive. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's fine. If we have time, I was just wondering, are there new products for this soda ash that are being developed?
I'm not so sure. I probably shouldn't speak to new products, but it's used in things that we use every day. And then, of course, the main thing it's used in is glass, whether it's windows, bottles, auto glass, residential glass, commercial glass. And, and we see it as when the economy does pick up again, and as we recover from COVID, globally, not just in the United States, because Trona is our soda ash is our #1 export. The market is going to grow and it's going to be there, and our guys are well positioned to fulfill that need.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Detail.
Question just about taxes and talking about your industry. I mean, so you buy a big truck from Wyoming Machinery or a big scoop shovel, coal mine. So tell us the tax on that. You pay sales tax on that?
Mr. Chairman, yes, we do.
But then do you also pay like a property tax, kind of an ad valorem, or is there another tax as you?
Mr. Chairman, are you asking me what taxes the coal industry pays?
I mean, on this kind of machinery sales.
I don't think you pay an ad valorem tax on it, but you do pay a sales tax on it.
When you do buy it, so you don't have that exemption, because we have that for ag machinery.
No, you do pay a sales tax on your equipment that you
On your-
purchase. And regretfully, we're not purchasing as much equipment as we have in the
Yeah.
past. And that's why our sales tax contributions to the state have gone down a little bit, but not a little bit, significantly. But yes, you do pay sales tax on that. Tires, trucks, shovels, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Right. So I knew ag was exempt from those ag machinery but I was curious mining.
Nope.
Those exemption lists are pretty long
Yep, we pay.
in Title 39.
Yep, we pay.
Yeah. Well, sure appreciate all you paid over the years. Certainly. Are there any folks here on the Zoom?
No, Mr. Chairman, we don't have anyone in the Zoom waiting room.
Yeah, go ahead. You want Mr. Detail? Oh, yeah, let's go.
I'm just getting my exercise.
Hey, you come to a meeting, you never know what can happen.
I'm always happy to visit with the Revenue Committee, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Detail, since we have the time, I mean, I'm curious on the trade practices, what China does with the synthetic trona. What can we do to take on, I mean, obviously a lot of it is federal, but is there anything the state legislature can do? And then if any action federally to stop these, what I view as illegal trade practices?
Go ahead, Mr. Detail.
Mr. Chairman, I would say this at the federal level, we've had a lot of success with our support from our congressional delegation with regards to the royalty rate that we pay on the federal royalty on the leased mineral, which Trona and coal are leased minerals. The federal government owns them, we lease them, and we pay a royalty on them. And our congressional delegation, with the support of the governor, has been very, very helpful in getting that royalty rate for Trona dropped a little bit. I believe it's at 3% now, and it's gone up and down for the past 2 decades, between 4%, between 6%. And it seems to come up, every couple of years, the royalty rate on Trona. So on the federal level, that's one thing, and then on the state level, I think, we have great support from the legislature already. And frankly, I go back to my earlier testimony. This is something tangible that you can do to help the industry, is by keeping this exemption in place. But the tax burden, because the Trona industry pays a significant amount of taxes as well. And I would say this, with coal on its trajectory that it is now, and until we make some significant progress with carbon capture and get power companies to put that capture on their coal-fired power plants, you're going to see that trend in coal continue. But as I was discussing with Representative Roscoe a few seconds ago, Representative Gray, Trona is going to go up, and you may just see in the next decade that those are going to be, that they may be equalizing, and maybe Trona become our big daddy in the state here sooner or later. So, the taxes are the number one thing that you guys can do on your end. Keep our tax burden as low as you can. It's already pretty high. Does that answer your question, Representative Gray?
Go ahead there, Representative Hallinan.
I think you pay about $4 million in sales tax, don't you? Is
Yeah,
that correct?
Mr. Chairman, I think that sounds correct. And a lot of that sales tax is paid by one company. And I can go back and get you an exact number, and I'm happy to share that with the committee when I get that.
Hey, how we doing? Any progress on the Zoom? Okay, we'll give a few more minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm getting ready to sneak away. Does anybody else have any questions?
Well, don't sneak away yet, Mr. Detail. Just so really, you talked about section 2 of this bill, and then those services that are those, that we classify the engineering and kind of management services. I mean, you don't worry about landscapers or lawnmowers or recreation, golf course, ski resort. Yeah, I know that's probably an unfair question, but the ones I heard from you, I just is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's fair, Mr. Chairman. We use a lot of consulting services, a lot of environmental services, and a lot of that is necessary just due to the regulatory burden, yet another burden that the industry faces to keep up with all the federal regulations. We fully expect that to increase in the coming years. I will give you just a little example. Our Trona industry recently, I shouldn't say recently, it was about a 5 or 6 year project where we contracted with one of our environmental companies, environmental analysis laboratory companies, to do air modeling in the Trona patch. And it went on for, roughly about 6 years, I would say. And for the purpose of maintaining or ensuring maintaining your compliance with the federal regulations, with federal air regulations. And the project ran probably over $100,000 a year, for 6 years. You slap a sales tax on that, and that's pretty significant. That's an extra $50,000, $60,000 for these companies. We're doing these things, and we're employing these, and working with these companies, these consulting companies, and they help with permitting, ongoing permitting issues with the state of Wyoming and with the federal government. So it's a we spend a pretty penny with these guys, and it's good. They do great work. We have to do it. But again, you start slapping a tax on those, it's just driving up your cost of doing business.
Well, thank you. Okay. Any progress? Okay, I think we're going to, anybody here in the room like testify, hasn't testified? Okay, we're going to go ahead and close in public comment, and I'll just ask, is there a motion on the bill? Okay, we have a motion on the bill. Is there a second? By Representative Roscoe. Okay, let's work the bill. I think we'll just flip page by page. Okay, let's flip over to page 2. Are there any amendments on page 2? I propose an amendment on veterinary services, line 18. And seconded. Any discussion? To pull that out of this bill, veterinary services, line 18. Any discussion? Go ahead. Go ahead. Vice Chair.
I'd like to propose, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to propose a friendly amendment to that, just carry on the rest of that line. Other agriculture services.
I don't think that's friendly.
Huh?
Yeah, make your own amendment on that one. I guess you can, it's not friendly.
delete those sections that pertain to manufacturing.
So section 2, just manufacturing or manufacturing data centers?
Manufacturing data centers, yes, sir.
Okay, so remove section 2.
Our mics are on.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, there's a second. Any discussion? On removal of section 2 is a motion. Manufacturing data center. Please say aye. Opposed? That's been adopted. So section 2 is removed from the bill. Any other amendments? About running out of bill here.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Hallinan.
I don't know which one of the repealers on here is for food, but I'd like to have that excluded, that one repealed.
It's not in the bill. It's not in the bill. Food is not
Okay.
in.
Okay, well, I don't need to do that then.
Yeah. All right, it'll be quick. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd urge a no vote on this. I think it's a big change, and I just think it's the wrong move for our state. So I urge a no vote. Thank you.
Okay, we're calling the roll on House Bill 168. As amended.
Representatives Baker,
No.
Gray,
No.
Hallinan, Henderson, Jennings, Roscoe,
Aye.
Sweeney,
No.
Yin.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we have 2 ayes, 7 noes, the ayes being Representatives Roscoe and Representative Yin.
Thank you all for testifying. Next bill for our consideration is House Resolution 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I bring you House Joint Resolution 9, local government investment in equities. So what this is about, well, I better stick to my script. Basically, our county commissioners in Netrona County asked what's wrong as far as why can't they invest, just like the state had changed with then Treasurer Gordon, if you remember, ran on an amendment. I think it was titled Amendment A, but allowing the permanent mineral trust funds to be invested in a portion into equities for a higher rate of return. So as you may be aware, 94831 delineates how public funds may be invested. For counties and municipalities, the menu of potential investments is pretty narrow. Generally speaking, it includes CDs, money market accounts, bonds, but not equities. And currently, as you're well aware, CDs are, if you can get 1% to 2%, you're probably doing good. And money markets are not much better, and bonds in a declining market are not zero, but maybe 1%. So one can deduce that the rationale behind this narrow list is that local governments need to keep public funds liquid and away from any downside risk. Tying up their funds in equities and other long-term investments would not make sense for most local governments. The state of Wyoming has recognized the need to diversify its investments into other vehicles. For instance, the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund and the Wyoming retirement system have broad ability to put money into a wide variety of investment vehicles. The thought process being that the corpus of these funds either would not be touched or that the liquidity needs would not be immediate or even in the foreseeable future. There are a number of counties and probably a few municipalities due to either robust mineral revenue or other one-time cash infusions that possess funds which are not needed for operations today or for the near term. But what they'd like to do, and this is one of the keys, in my opinion, if we were, and this is an extremely heavy lift, just like Representative Hallian's amendment, first 2/3 of each body, then out to the public to get this passed, which would happen 2 years from now. Given the current restrictions, these entities are unable to invest them more aggressively, and the current returns on investment are very low. Take WyoStar 1 and WyoStar 2, for example. Both accounts are authorized by statute and are managed by the Treasurer's Office. And no fault of the Treasurer's Office, they are doing what we have prescribed. WyoStar 1 focuses on liquidity and low risk investments, but only returns much less than about 1%. WyoStar 2 is a bit more aggressive, investing in all corporate bonds and BBB rated, which is the most risk allowed by law. This fund currently returns, my limited knowledge is approximately 1.5 to 2% maximum. And I think this past year, it was around 1.7%. With the interest rates for the foreseeable future expected to be near zero, the opportunity to put these funds held by local governments to work does not exist. The passage of this constitutional amendment would allow the state to craft a statutory framework which would allow such funds to be invested more aggressively. For example, the current long-term target rate of the Wyoming retirement system is 6.75, which it's been able to achieve over the last 10 years. And I think at one point, they may have hit 17%. If, as an example, Netrona County could invest the proceeds from the sale of the Wyoming Medical Center. Similarly, the county would be looking at annual returns of close to $7 million. Currently, they'll be lucky to get $1 million to put into different projects, which then potentially could reduce the legislature's distribution, potentially. So with that, and then they wouldn't have to touch the principal. So I'll spare you from going through the bill. It's pretty short, but I'll draw your attention to page 2. And I do have an amendment already that I'd asked. You've already got it? Okay, thank you. Good deal. Oh, if I can find my copy. So what the amendment does, if you go, there's 2 slight changes on page 1, line 3 and 4, but the most of it, and this addition, I think, is what it does. It follows language that's already existing. And so that just simply inserts that language into, after line 23 on page 2, and then a small change. So with that, there are some experts in the audience much more versed on this subject than I, and if it pleases the committee and the chairman.
Thank you. Nice job on that presentation. Are members any questions of the sponsor, Representative Sweeney? Okay, and I just see this really as a mirror of what we did the Amendment A a few years back, really. Okay, very good. Well, appreciate your presentation. Members from the executive branch would like to comment.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, name's Rob Krieger, advisor to Governor Gordon. I'll be brief. This is a lot of what Governor Gordon did as treasurer, and he is supportive of this bill as well as the amendment. There's a lot of good discussion, I know, this morning in this committee about tools to these counties and local municipalities as well on the floor today. And I think the governor sees this as one of those tools that could really help some of these communities, whatever they want to do with it. But I think this is a good first step. So with that, I'll stand for question.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for a great presentation. And my question is, what's foreseen as far as the treasurer in terms of that role, and more particularly, given all the good effort we've been working on to bring all these investments in the House with will he or she, whoever's in that office, will they have the independence to make the right decisions at the right time?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Henderson, I believe that question could be addressed down the road. The way I understand this is we would hopefully get it out of the legislature, then onto the ballot. If that were to pass, then back in the body of the legislature, those discussions could take place. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Guys, if folks online want to raise their hand, if they want to speak on this issue, provide any testimony. Okay.
It is Riemann. Right. IE. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's that old German, you drop the first vowel and accent the second one. So, yeah. All right. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I am Jeremiah Riemann here on behalf of the County Commissioners Association. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak on this evening. I am joined by our board president, Mr. Jim Willix, Converse County Chairman. He's in the back of the room, and Mr. Paul Bertolio with the Netrona County Commissioner. Mr. Chairman, as has been presented, this bill simply authorizes the opportunity to go to the voters to determine if this is an option that will be afforded at the county level, as well as to some other parties. You all will then have a role in defining, and there are some pretty tall parameters around that, what the investment risks and all of the other sideboards are. So that will be the next part of this. It's the same opportunity that the state has in our current constitution in Article 16.6. Mr. Chairman, again, this does require additional action. It's not going to be for every county. It's permissive, it's not mandatory. So that is another important piece of this. Mr. Chairman, we do support the amendment. It is only appropriate that the language mirrors that which the state has to abide by relative to this particular option. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Bertolio because he can certainly provide a more local perspective on what this could mean for their community.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. About 17. exceptionally high paid. 4 years commissioner, 3 years mayor. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, again, my name is Paul Bertolio. I am the chairman of the Netrona County Board of County Commissioners. As Chairman Harshman alluded to, I've worked in local government and am very keen knowledge of how government works. The vast majority of our funds that we get, we work very diligently to utilize them as most efficiently as we can to provide services to our citizens. We recognize the vast majority of these have to be very liquid. General funds, our 1 cent funds, we try to focus them on capital needs, but still we have, in the end, a need to be able to accumulate funds for projects that may be out 5 years. That typically is what local governments do. There are classes of funds that are sitting out there that local governments have decided to put aside and try to mirror permanent mineral trust fund type actions where we are not touching the corpus and are trying to live off the earnings on that to help fund general operations, or in case of what we've got coming forward, even the potential to do revenue bonds to fund large projects such as maybe a library. So we find ourselves in Netrona County in a very unique position with the sale of Wyoming Medical Center having $115 million at our disposal. And some people think it's at our disposal. We do not want to start spending that money. That is the citizens' money that was invested in a hospital. And once it's gone, it's gone. The hospital's going to stay there forever. We would like to consider this as a hard asset that we want to use as an opportunity to help fund future operations. Currently, as Representative Sweeney said, Wildstar 2 is our best investment instrument. Book value returns are 1.5 to 1.75%. Yield on it is 0.5%. Wildstar 1 is the yield on it, if you just look at the yield, is less than 10 basis points, 0.1%. The average we can get in Wyoming class, which is similar to YGIF funding, is about 18 basis points, and then we have to subtract some fund fees. So we're down to where on $115 million, we might be able to get $1.5 to $2 million that we can utilize for operations. In Netrona County's case, I would ask you to think about how many times we come down to the legislature and ask for funding. If we can start self-funding in our particular case, we may not only not need to come down here, but the funds may be more available across the state for those counties that don't have this opportunity, or municipalities. So we understand that there will be restrictions placed on this. We anticipate that we would like to see this treated similar to the permanent mineral trust funds. Once the funds are in there, the corpus does not get touched. We would expect to have money managers managing this, not us, not our county treasurer. We want professionals handling this, just like the permanent mineral trust fund. There are so many things that have to be done by the legislature just to get this on the ballot. Obviously, the 2/3. If it passes, then it still comes back, it goes to the people, comes back, and then you have the opportunity to put those details in place. This is an opportunity to allow local governments an opportunity to self-fund and utilize assets that we have in our repertoire to better serve our constituents. And with that, I would stand for any questions, and I thank you again.
Commissioner Representative Roscoe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bertolio, is there any chance of, I just get a little nervous about, setting up these investment funds with just local people, and you were saying you'd have a investment firm or managers of this. Is there any chance that you could use some of the existing state funds to just put your $150 million into and use their managers and it's already established and it gets really, a good hard look at it.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Roscoe, that's exactly what we'd like to do. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. There's a clear established policy in place that has worked for the state, and there's no point in us doing it. I would like to see the opportunity for all local governments that have these funds. There are not going to be a lot of entities that have this. There's going to be some of the larger counties and some of the larger cities. I know the city of Casper has what they call perpetual care funds. They've had that for 40 years in place. Well, ever since I guess it's the Ford Event Center or whatever it's called now, the old Casper Event Center. They started a perpetual care fund with the intent that the earnings off of that would help fund the operations. It's been a while since I've been out of the city of Casper, but I believe I know for a fact there's in excess of $20 million in that fund. We don't want to have to go out and get new money managers. The process for getting them and all that is beyond our expertise. The state has established that expertise already. There's no point in us going out and doing it. So I think that would be our preferred approach.
How come, Chairman Bertolio, how come we didn't just put that? I don't see that in there. I mean, this is not necessarily under the state treasurer like Amendment A. Go ahead.
The current statutory construct and constitutional construct doesn't allow us to go in that direction. We need this constitutional amendment in order to do that. And all this bill does is authorize the constitutional amendment. We will then come back to you and do that.
And then that's the next step. Then we would allow you to invest in a pool A for municipalities. That's your intent.
Correct.
Okay, so very good. Okay. Representative Hallinan has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I would ask Representative Sweeney, would he have any objections to, or the other, Mr. Bertolio, would have any objections to having it be required that this money be invested with the state in their investment portfolio with their management of these funds?
Representative Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Hallinan, I don't believe at this point we can do that, but I'm certainly not an attorney. This is the way LSO drafted it to begin with. Then I think if we can get it through the House and the Senate, then to the voters approve it, then it comes back to the legislature where we then, I believe and Jeremiah is probably more knowledgeable, but then we can prescribe and put the sideboards once it comes back to the legislature.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Representative Hallinan, that's correct. You would then do that at that second stage, and it would, as this constitutional amendment requires, have that 2/3 vote threshold even when we come back to you. So.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Evening, afternoon. Mr. Chairman, for the record, David Fraser, Executive Director, Wyoming Association of Municipalities. I bring the apologies of WAM's president, Mayor Matt Hall of Cody, who was here earlier today and hoping to to testify on this, but had to get back to a council meeting tonight. So otherwise, he'd have been here with me as well. So you get the JV team today, I guess. I appreciate, really appreciate Representative Sweeney's efforts here, and also recognize this as an opportunity for the governor to finish what he started a little bit, and we support that. Surprised the cities support this bill and urge you to pass it. This is, of course, the beginning of the first step in a multi-year process. And I like that. I really don't have much to add other than what's been said. Other than I appreciate, if we can keep the ballot language simple so that people can understand it and pass that. I think the real heavy lifting on this job will be after the ballot passes and when you guys are back to set up the ground rules and safeguards. And I do appreciate, I wanted to mention that I appreciate what Representative Roscoe added as well. We had a discussion in the interim with the Corporations Committee on, on the possibility of cities and counties being able to invest in the state's pool. And even though we got, what I would characterize as a warm reception from the committee, it was a very short discussion because the LSO pointed out pretty quickly that we weren't constitutionally able to go down that path. So we certainly would like to go down that path. We think that the states got the system set up pretty well, and we'd just like to be able to have, what few of our cities could take advantage of that, have the opportunity to do so. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would certainly stand for any questions. Thank you.
Anyone else here like to testify on the bill? We got you all? Okay. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, just one last thought, and I really appreciate LSO's work on this. Plus, the governor's office, honestly, the governor brought the amendment, and appreciate Rob's work on this and support. And the governor's concern was the mirror language, so that he's very hopeful and will be there to support the effort also, which I was very excited about. But I did visit with Patrick Fleming, our Chief Investment Officer, and I said, "What's wrong with this picture?" And he said, "Call Don Richards." And so Don said, "You need to talk to Ian." And so it's very frustrating that our cities, our municipalities, our counties, if they have the revenue available, and it's limited, but it could be a huge thing for our municipalities, our counties, and I believe for the state. So thank you for your consideration.
And Mr. Krieger, appreciate your work. 2014 Kinsey just right?
That's correct.
Just saying. No Mustangs. All right. Very good. Well, Mr. Sweeney will be back in front of us. One thing I'd like to remember.
I move the amendment that's in front of us here, proposed as standing committee amendment to House Joint Resolution 9, numbered 801. You can see where it makes a change to page 1 at the subject there, incorporates the language that was referred to in testimony, and makes it say what it should. So we're prepared to take it to the floor.
Yeah. Okay, that's motion amendment. Need a second? Representative Hallinan. Okay, motion second. We're voting on the amendment.
Question.
All those in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed? Okay, that amendment's been adopted. Any other amendments?
Question.
Question being called on the joint resolution. You want to comment again?
Yeah, on the bill.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm used to other committees. Usually there's a chance to comment at the end. Apologize. Thank you for the chance. I'm going to be voting no on this. I think there's a lot of questions in this amendment, and what I concerned about is that it incentivizes the selling of county assets, and then the county can yield seek, and then if it doesn't go right, come back to the legislature and ask for funds if it doesn't go well, and also ask for funds to, help with the asset that they've sold. And I don't think we've really answered that question, how that would, that circular mentality. And so I'm also the nature of the state potentially being a custodian of this, I think is something that needs to be explored more. And I'm just not comfortable with it. So I'm going to be voting no. Thank you.
Representatives Baker,
No.
Gray, Hallinan, Henderson, Jennings, Roscoe, Sweeney, Yin.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we have 6 ayes, 3 noes, the noes being Representatives Baker, Representative Gray, and Representative Jennings.
Okay, well, thank you very much, all for being here today and traveling down here, Commissioner. And Bonnie, thanks for taking such good care of us.
Thank you.